Left alone in the orphanage, the boy had nowhere to go. Years later, he was no longer seen as human. Chaeyeon became a test subject for their experiments. They named him Test Subject 17, a guy who had an S+ Chimera monster growing inside him. Even though the power was forced into him, his young body took it all without getting hurt. 64 years ago, he was sent out to hunt down the Chimeras. 59 years later, he had lost all memory of who he was. As time went on, the experiments just kept getting worse. Chaeyeon had stopped being human and was now just a trapped animal. 20 years ago, he turned into a total monster. But 3 days ago, after getting injected with Chimera Cell 527, he finally changed back into a human. His mind woke up, and now that scary power meant Chaeyeon could finally be free. Then, one day, a strange red rift popped out of nowhere in the blue sky. Suddenly, portals burst open and the world was about to be destroyed with no warning. Huge, scary monsters poured out from a dark place called the demonic realm. To face the danger, a special group of people finally showed up. They were gifted with special powers that stirred from the mana, giving humanity a chance to finally fight back. As time went by and cities rose from the ashes to find peace, the monsters never stopped attacking, keeping the danger alive. A hunter stands ready, using his shield to block a pack of goblins from striking him. The real trouble was that there just weren't enough hunters born with special powers. Since the monster waves never stopped, scientists built artificial beings in a lab to save the day. These weapons were built just to hunt down the monsters from the other side. They earned the name Chimera Hunters and became the fresh hope for everyone. We found out they were made from prisoners, special portal stones, and the cells of terrifying monsters. The drive for humanity to survive led to mass production of chimeras. Mixing science with hunting made many more lives safe and saved countless animals from dying. Slowly but surely, cities and society finally began to rebuild for real. The story jumps to a secret lab where two scientists finish their late-night sweep of the basement, only for one to grimly point out that Subject 17's arms are rotting away. One warns the other to stay back, but he insists it's safe because the creature's brain isn't working. He points to his rotting right arm and wonders if this is a side effect. The worst part is that the creature's eyes can already see what's about to happen. The frightened one tells the other to forget it, since the chimera is about to be thrown away anyway. They simply turn around and walk away, leaving the creature all by itself in the blackness. Inside the director's office, they say number 17 is a lost cause. They explain that his body is almost completely broken. The director checks how much time is left for him. The scientist replies within a month, which surprises his partner. The director decides to put him in on a mission to save the hunters who are running away. In the end, he tells them not to pull back, letting the chimera perish. The scene changes to the dark realm where the chimera stands all by itself on the battlefield. A huge flying beast dives down to strike our single soldier, but the chimera stands firm and doesn't even flinch. It uses its magic to catch the creature right in the air. Several other monsters leap from the shadows and hurl fireballs at it. A huge worm shoots up from the dirt and lets out a terrifying roar to scare the downed chimera. Suddenly, the chimera shot straight up into the air, catching the monster completely off guard. It uses its speed to cut through several flying enemies nearby. Then it hoards a massive rush of energy until it forms a giant sphere of crackling lightning. With ridiculous might, it unleashes a massive lightning bolt that strikes everyone standing on the ground. The power was so fierce it fried the monsters in just a heartbeat. Hunters watch from a distance and whisper about how amazing the S-Class Chimera really is. Someone noted that the portal hasn't closed even after 3 days. But he says not to worry because they have a chimera there to handle it. The hunter pulls out his sword and says he only has one thing to do now. All that's left is to wipe out the tiny monsters that slip past the big attack. Suddenly, the red portal began to tremble and seemed ready to shut. The hunter nods to end the mission, signaling that the hunt is finally done. The group leader yells for everyone to head home, while the chimera keeps on fighting and takes out the last few monsters. As the group pulled away, a female hunter called out to ask if they really meant to leave the chimera behind. The leader answers that they were told to leave it alone because it is going to die on its own anyway. The young woman feels sorry for the creature, but her partner tells her not to pity it. He explains that those things are just weapons built to follow orders. Even though the chimera was badly hurt in the fight and had a spear through its hand, it kept on fighting. In the end, they're just monsters. All it cared about was getting the hunter home safe, and nothing else mattered. A filthy beast with human teeth creeps into view, drooling and about to strike. Even tired, the chimera gathers its strength one last time to deliver a final, mighty blow. It shoots a lightning bolt proving it gets the order to stay put. In the end, there was only one path left for it, to complete its final task. The order was clear: don't come back. With his hand touching the ground, the mission was finally over. Even as the Chimera fell apart, its instinct to come back fought one last battle, but it was already too late. The last order was made, and it was crystal clear. With no return allowed, the mission ended flat with 0 hunters lost and the Chimera tossed aside. It fought and killed more than 1,800 monsters all by itself, before finally giving way. Then its forgotten past came back, showing it had once been a human kidnapped away. His broken mind can't understand the movie playing out in his memories. Even though he doesn't understand what he's seeing, he watches every memory from his past life with deep focus. The story jumps back 79 years to the day a man walked away, leaving him all alone at an orphanage. Years down the road, the director beats him up because he hit a friend who had teased him. As the orphanage door slammed shut, it was clear that his life inside had never been easy. After the caretakers get sick of him, they throw him out into the freezing snow, leaving the boy all by himself. As the men in black lay on the ground, they found him and whisked him away. He finds himself trapped in a lab, forced to become just another test subject for their experiments. So he gets marked as number 17, and the scientists give him one strict rule: never try to run away. The scientists carefully counted out the S+ cells and injected them into the animal labeled 17 for the experiment. Now they watch closely to see how the boy's body will react. Everyone was shocked when he stayed looking completely human with no strange side effects at all. Seeing that he is made of something special, they push him to his breaking point until he finally gives in. As the scientists closed in to keep testing the boy, the scene suddenly jumped back 64 years to show him learning how to fight. Now that he is older, he steps into real battles to fight monsters. He uses electric powers to blast away every danger in his way. He turned into a hero who saved people from the monsters that kept attacking them. The mother and daughter thanked him over and over again for saving their lives. Even though everyone felt sorry for him, he just shrugged and said it was fine, showing no feeling at all. Suddenly, the memory leaps back 59 years, leaving him confused as he glances around, unable to recall what he was doing or how he ended up there. The scientist walks up to the man who stood frozen and asks if his memories were messing with his head. The man throws a wild party, shouting that the side effects are finally showing up. Years down the road, they finally looked at the answers from 15 years of wild monster cell tests. He turned into the lab's greatest creation, a weapon with power beyond measure. 20 years ago, someone treated him kindly and called him a good boy. His terrifying, beast-like look made a woman scream in terror, and soon everyone else turned away, calling him a monster they could never trust. His mind flashes back to 3 days ago, the very second he unleashed his final attack. As his body falls apart, he knows every mission is done, so he stands alone and watches the sun rise, finally accepting his fate in this forgotten place. Suddenly, a strange light starts glowing from inside his bones. This energy begins to repair his body, starting right with his spine. The 52-7 monster cells start growing back fast. The flesh and muscles of the first 17 are starting to knit back together. Suddenly, a burst of light covers everything and blinds the battlefield. He wakes back up as a human, completely confused about what is going on. Against all odds, the Chimera hunter came back to life and was now completely free. Striding by himself, he asks if he's truly become human once more. As he glances down at his hand, he realizes the monster cells inside are still alive and moving. The 17 brand is gone, and he realizes he has been cast aside, yet perhaps, just perhaps, he is finally free. He came back to life because the phoenix cells inside him turned his ashes into new life. Even though it seemed impossible, his body has somehow found its strength again. He feels stronger than ever now that the bad side effects and dizzy spells have finally gone away. Now that he's done being number 17, he's not sure if he can ever feel like a person again. He recalls a scientist urging him to lend a hand to others. You were told to try living by saving at least 1,000 people. The scientist proposed the name Chaeyon Dun, but he believes it's a massive joke. Now he wants to move on, but the idea of revenge quietly slips back into his mind. He realizes that to take revenge, he needs someone right in front of him, but after all this time, the urge for vengeance has almost completely faded. He decides to wait and see what he can do once he finds them. So he turns to face the bright sun, prepared to begin his own fresh adventure. He decided to try living like a normal human for now. But first, he notices he's totally naked and knows he needs to get some clothes on. As he walked across the desert, he couldn't even remember when he last wore clothes. He stumbles upon a forest and a river, but he has no clue how to make clothes in the wild. He He cautiously slips into the bushes to peek around. Then he jumps at the strange thing he spots hiding in the bushes. He spots a dead griffin that looks like it died of old age instead of battle, since its body shows no big wounds. Peering closer, he spots blood and realizes the creature died from poison. He's thrilled about this because he really needed that leather to make clothes for himself. To skin it, he turns his own arm into a sharp and stylish blade. He recalls the dissecting lab, carefully planning where to slice the creature to make it look perfect. But the moment he touches the beast, a flash of purple light shocks him. Noticing the griffin's corpse pouring out deadly poison that his own body ignores, he decides to grab the hide anyway. He pulls the skin over himself and thinks it's not bad for a first try. Next, he heads to the river to clean the beast's hide he found, only to realize the leather is much tougher than he expected. Then the guy has a bright idea for a simple fix. He pounds a hide with all his might, wondering if this is how you make leather, but keeps beating it nonstop anyway. After a while, the skin was finally ready and super soft, just the way he wanted. The hunter nods, happy with the size, and gets ready to slip into the outfit. But back at camp, a baby griffin with burning feathers suddenly appears. The creature jumps out and startles him right as he's concentrating hard on cutting his new outfit. With one sharp hit, he punches a hole right through the skin for his head. Then, he quickly fashions a belt from a vine and ties it around his waist. By the time it was all over, the monster leather outfit fit just right and looked seriously cool. He realizes the beast's poison is still lingering in his new gear. He was too lazy to clean up and got a shock when he found the baby griffin wasn't dead. The tiny creature begins to scream, and he suddenly realizes he understands what it is saying. He finally understands that the creature is immortal, which is the only reason it is still alive. He used to kill without a second thought, but now the beast is too weak to fight back, so he says they're both lucky because this is his second life, and he intends to live it to the fullest. He waves goodbye and whispers that if fate allows, their paths will cross again someday. Now that he's got his clothes sorted, he's off to hunt for a new house. Suddenly, a huge centipede with a loud scream pops up, catching him completely off guard. The monster looks down at him, hungry and ready to make him his next snack. Even though it's dangerous, he just grumbles about the cave being too dark for him. With one strike, he chops off the beast's head and green liquid sprays out. He doesn't bother with the dead bug and decides this cave isn't worth staying in. He keeps looking until he finds himself on a snowy mountain. But there, he crashes right into a furious yeti who is not happy to see him. Realizing that food will be hard to find, he decides to leave and keep moving, only to stumble upon some strange mushrooms later that smell so awful he immediately turns away. Finally, he spots a nasty, smelly cave and decides to keep looking. After looking everywhere, he finally finds a perfect spot right at the top of the cliff. The waterfall's breathtaking landscape amazed him by revealing nature's incredible beauty. Curious, he decides to take a closer look and leaps from the top without a single worry. He lands with a superhero's power at the river's edge, kicking up a huge splash. He realizes the water is not only crystal clear, but also teeming with fish. He stares at the giant piranhas swimming nearby, already imagining how to roast one for dinner. With easy food nearby, he starts to picture building a house in the area. The spot is filled with flowers and fresh air that makes him even more excited. He stands right in the middle of the clearing, feeling like he's finally found the perfect spot. With a grin, he decides that Cheon-Dun's house will go right there. The ground is empty and ready for him to begin his new life of peace. Then suddenly, a dark electrical portal splits open in the sky, breaking the quiet. Something gets violently thrown out of the portal and smashes onto the ground, sending a cloud of dust flying everywhere. Through the smoke, he spots a tiny, sparking robot with glowing red eyes that asks if this place is the demon realm. He looks at the pretty flowers and the beautiful view, thinking how fresh the air feels right here. He loves the spot because he can even hear the waterfall nearby. With a smile up at the sky, he decides it's finally time to build his house. First, he finds a good piece of land and uses his magic to clear the way. He weaves energy threads to cut down several trees at once, moving through it like it's nothing. The massive tree trunks drop as if they weigh nothing, proving just how absurdly strong he is. Now that the trees are down, he feels the ground is ready to start. He wields his magic to find and pile up the finest pieces of wood. He feels the wood he's taken is enough, yet he sees the ground is now lopsided. So to flatten the ground, he just throws his whole strength into punching the earth. The land smoothed out into a perfect, sunny field, leaving him feeling totally pleased with how it turned out. He touches the ground and finds his hands and feet moving exactly how he wants, all on their own. First, he hoists a heavy trunk to the corners of the building. As he stands in the first house he ever built, Feeling completely free and having a blast, the adventure truly comes to life. Next, he begins laying the floorboards, moving fast as he works. Lacking nails, he decides to use the sticky slime from a slug monster to glue the house walls together. He says that once the slime hardens, it turns into a waterproof stone. For the final touch, he plants some special trees around the new building. He feels great knowing that most monsters won't even be able to get near him. The house ended up cozy, and he loved the final result of his very first project. But he feels something is missing, so he tries to remember what a normal house has. He remembers a science class where they learned how houses used to look in the old days. In the videos, he noticed that folks in the yard were always growing things. He thought about getting a dog, but quickly realized it wasn't possible and put the idea aside. So, he sets out to grow a garden in the demon realm, even though he doesn't know which plants will survive there. Suddenly, he remembers the snowy mountain nearby and gets a bright idea. Excited, he wonders if he can plant mandrakes, a very special plant from there. The scene moves up to the mountain, where he sees the heavy snow falling, which is just normal there. The white snow brings back the day he was snatched away and dragged into the lab. He remembered the biting cold so well that he thought it would be better to let strangers take him. Dune feels lucky to be a chimera, since he never has to worry about the cold or hunger. And sensing the strong demonic energy nearby, he knows he is almost there until he spots the tiny plants in the snow and realizes his long journey was finally worth it. He learns that mandrakes are fragile plants that can't handle change, so he picks the youngest one since it will be easiest to get used to its new home. He gently lifts the tiny plant, knowing the terrible noise it's about to make. But to his surprise, the Munder had just made a cute sound, leaving him totally confused. Dun grabs another one with curiosity, and it reacts with the same calmness. He looks at the tiny creatures in his hands and wonders if they're talking in their sleep. It turns out the scream only happens when they are raised by humans in quiet places. It makes sense they don't scream in there, but he finds it strange that they don't even try to run away from him. Suddenly, he realizes they look at him as an equal simply because of the cells inside him. Thinking this was a great idea, he tucks them into his makeshift belt because less stress is always better. He even dreams that if they get big, he'll ask for a few roots to brew tea. A cold shiver races up his spine as he recalls that taking the fruit by force turns it deadly. He suddenly feels hunters nearby and wonders why anyone would dare climb such a deadly mountain. Smiling, he heads to the gate to see what those guys are doing. The scene shifts to reveal desperate hunters being used as bait by their own companions. Suddenly, a whole pack of white monsters lunges at them without any mercy. The strange beast snaps its jaws, showing off its sharp teeth and a bunch of tentacles instead of tongue. The hunter builds a wall of ice to stop the beast's deadly blow, but his heart races with fear as he realizes the monster is too strong and he will die. As his partner yells that the barrier is about to shatter under the pressure, the man, seeing the cracks spreading and regretting his choice to hunt the chimera, screams for help as despair takes over. All at once, something heavy slammed into the ground with a mighty crash, sending a huge cloud of snow flying into the air. The hunters stand stunned as they watch the monster rabbits fall instantly. They see a strange shadow rising through the smoke and wonder if it's a person. And there stood Dwan, looking serious but just in time to help. But one snow rabbit was still alive, growling at him with its teeth ready to snap. Dune lets out a dark, powerful aura, saying it has been a long time since he felt such a thing. As the last monster rabbit shrieks in terror, it bolts desperately to escape with the rest of its pack. The hunters were stunned, unable to believe that a mere rank B monster had simply fled after staring at him. One of them wakes from the shock and thanks Dune for saving their lives. Then, they introduce themselves as Oyangju and Kim Taehin, and he replies with his own name, Chan Dune. Taehin feels everything is strange because he has never heard that name before, and his clothes look very weird to him. Dune then wonders why they are here, since this spot is incredibly dangerous for any hunter. He said he did it for the cash. They took on a dangerous job to catch a chimera. He mentions hearing about a test subject getting away, which makes our hero start to suspect something is wrong. Dune walks right past it and says he'll come back with a crystal, but the hunter just asks where his gear went. The guy admits his friend stole everything and ran away, using them as bait to remember the trader's plan and realize the gate crystal is now in their hands, while his hunters ask if he has a way out because time is running out fast. We find out that hunters will die if they stay out in the open with demonic energy for too long. One of them pleads for help, but Dune focuses his mind, unleashes his powers, and declares that he has found it. Dune doesn't even wait for an answer. He leaps so high it looks impossible, leaving the two hunters staring in shock. They scream in panic, wondering where he's going just as he vanishes into the sky. The view shifts to a tiny robot watching a bright light crash down toward it. The tiny robot halts at the cliff's edge, sensing the danger, just as trader hunters shout that it's time to catch the target. The robot switches to battle mode because the order is simple. If it's dangerous, crush it. Then the small machine zooms right at them at full speed, kicking off a wild fight right there. Dune rushes to the battle site and worries he might be too late to fix the mess. He spots blood soaking the ground and knows the hunters must have rushed away in a panic. He looked at the broken gear and strange footprints and realized the monster had changed its shape while fighting. He still remembers the story about the lab's mechanical subject that broke free and ran away. They tell us it's made of liquid metal that can stretch and twist into any shape it wants. Dune smiles, impressed that the creature took down 5 top-ranked bee hunters all by itself. The story shifts back to the other hunters, where Sianju admits he's finished because his body has turned against him. His friend is desperate and begs him to keep going because his wife is expecting a baby. Tahin tries to bring hope, insisting that a miracle could happen right this second. But as he looks up, he freezes in shock at what he sees. And Dune was glowing, hauling away all the bags the others had left behind. Without a second thought, the hunter drops to his knees in the snow and begs for help. Dune noted that the gate stones are all gone, stolen long ago. Then the man slides forward 2 checks, each worth $1 million, and whispers that this is their only way to live. Our hero pockets the money, figuring that even if he doesn't need it right now, it will come in handy back in a human world. With cash in his pocket, he smashes a stone from the gate and hands a piece to the guys. As the portal opens, the hunter gives thanks, promising he'll never forget this kindness. As the man struggles to help his friend, Dwan just stands there, eyes locked on the money he just got. He asks if the stones used to cost 200,000, but the hunter says they are worth $1 million now. Hearing that made our hero realize he had charged way too much. So with a grin, he tells her he'll return the change in a different way. Suddenly, Dune unleashes a burst of blue magic that terrifies the hunter, knowing it's a deadly move. It was said that when mana clashes, both die instantly, but everyone was shocked to see the dark energy turn pure and leave the man stunned. After his friend pulls through, they embrace in a stunned hug, barely believing they are still alive. On their knees, they thank him and can't stop asking themselves who Chondawon really is. Back in his own land, he looks calm and thoughtful after all the chaos. He steps into his cabin, happy with the surprise money he found on this journey. He notices the Mundara has woken up and knows it is time to plant it. With that, he starts digging a hole in the ground to make a cozy new home for the tiny creature. Once you plant them, mandrakes seem unhappy and give off a gloomy vibe. Don notices they look unhappy and starts to wonder if it's just hunger. So, he decides to gift them some mana, knowing how much they adore it. In an instant, the tiny creatures perk right up, and he feels good seeing them get better. Then suddenly, he halts and feels a strange power creeping closer. He realized quickly that he was hiding in the bushes as the target the hunters were chasing. Don decides to stop worrying about it and makes up his mind to hide the money he earned for later. Inside his cabin, he starts sorting through everything he packed in his backpack. We can tell he was fully ready for his trip, packing his cooking gear, sleeping bags, and even some gate stones. He finds a ramen packet and remembers the last time he ate it was back at the orphanage. With a big grin, he says he's hungry and decides to cook that ramen. He walks to a nearby river to fetch just the right amount of water for his recipe. But as he gets closer, strange aggressive fish leap out of the water. He recalls how folks often toss in extras to boost the flavor of their ramen, and he agrees. Thinking it through, he opts for fish and punches one of the monsters. He keeps hunting for ingredients and stumbles on a nest full of eggs, the perfect swap. With no green onions in sight, he scrambles up a tree to snatch a herb that ought to do the trick. Once everything is in the pot, he turns around to get cooking. From a safe distance, the tiny robot crept closer without making a sound. The robot watches the man cook with curiosity, trying to figure out what he's doing there. Back at his cabin, he stokes the fire and realizes the recipe forgot to say when to throw in the fish. So, he decides to throw all the ingredients into the pot and boil them together, even though the mix sounds strange. The planted Mundara sniffs the food and looks very curious. The scent is so overpowering and odd that they pass out, wondering if ramen has always smelled like this. The robot sniffs the food and drools, craving a taste of it. It decides it wants some too and starts plotting how to get it. It recalls something from the lab and changes its foot into a dog's paw. The machine shifts into a puppy that remembers humans like dogs do and helps the needy. A fake dog whimpers as it creeps closer, but Dune knows right away that this mechanical beast is only following him. He realized the robot had tricked everyone by pretending to be a hurt dog just to get sympathy. He notices the robot is still new and learning, and he wonders how it managed to get away from the lab. The little puppy waits by the pot, drooling as it anxiously hopes for a bite. Seeing that weird-looking grub, he decides to take a bite just to see how it tastes. He shares a bite with the dog at their rough table, but the creature stops mid-chew, confused by the strange flavor. The story jumps back in time to show young Dune happily slurping ramen alongside his fellow orphans. We watch him eat the hot food with pure happiness and fullness. Suddenly, that taste floods back with such force that it drags him straight back to when he was 7. The robot sat right in the middle of the forest, puzzled that the nice scent had vanished in an instant. The scent was so overpowering that the mandrakes grew sick and spat out a weird liquid. Suddenly, Dune turns to the child and tells the dog that if it has eaten, it's time to go. The puppy turns to limp away on its back leg, but the boy catches him, though this is strange since he had been limping on the left leg before. Embarrassed, the robot stumbles away on a limp while young Dion gives a grin. After finishing his meal, he grabs the clothes to wash, since he can't stand wearing that sticky leather tunic anymore. He grabs a piece of wood, trying to be gentle so as not to ruin the clothes, but he swings too hard and accidentally smashes the ground around him, leaving the wood lying there as he stares at the mess he made. Even though he's totally worn out, he insists it's fine. He has one final chance to wash. He watches as the mechanical beast turns to stone, then lingers nearby to keep an eye on him. We watched the tiny robot follow him everywhere as he washed the dishes in the river. Even when he went to check out the flowers, the thing was hiding behind a tree, watching him. Suddenly, a buzzing bee lands nearby, and the tree-shaped robot freezes in fear. It screams as it runs wildly, changing back into its true self, a creature that fears bees and thinks like a 5-year-old child. The hero isn't the least bit bothered by the strange, mechanical sound of its voice. Dune knows that feeling dizzy is a normal reaction for young Chimera, who just received new knowledge inside their minds. The tiny robot begins to fry from sheer panic, while Dwan just enjoys the pretty flowers. By the end, he finally gets the laundry done, discovering that washing clothes is much tougher than he thought. He's finally happy because at least he has a clean shirt now. But since the shirt looked too small, he left it drying and headed over to check on the mandrakes. While still hiding as a stone and watching from afar, the curious robot spots the shirt drying on the line and snatches it right away. It tries on a garment, copying the trick Dune just used with his own. The robot wears the shirt like a tunic and claims it as its own. Then, right before my eyes, it began to change, sprouting hair and taking on a look that was almost human. Now, as a little girl, the creature feels perfectly whole with her brand new appearance. When Dune steps into the garden, he stares at the withered mandrakes, completely baffled by what has gone wrong. He thought he had cleared everything, yet digging again, he found something completely different. While digging underground, the guy stumbled on bugs and realized he'd nearly ruined the plants by accident. With that, he decides he must build a garden as big as his house. But suddenly, a little girl steps out from behind a tree and tries to talk to him nervously. He's surprised to find that this time, she finally wants to have a real talk. She wonders if that house belongs to him, and he nods, telling her that's where he lives. The girl asks if he's from around here, and he considers playing it cool by teasing her. So he acts the part and asks which tribe she belongs to, leaving the girl completely confused. She points to where she came from the waterfall, and then he makes up a story about a Coco tribe. She stammers out an agreement, but he insists the clothes are his, so she just shrugs and says the finder keeps the clothes. He shrugs it off and asks what she needs, and she tells him she was kicked out and is asking for a favor. With that, the little girl screams at the top of her lungs, begging him to let her live with him. He asks why she lives there, and she answers awkwardly, explaining that there are no bugs and a nearby house makes everything feel much safer to her. She insists on her request, and Dune realizes the poor thing just needed a quiet place to rest in peace. He says yes, but warns her she'll have to help, which makes the girl jump with excitement. First, he says they must get the field ready to welcome a new Mundara home. She picks up the tool with confidence, proving she's strong enough to help. She proves her amazing strength by tilling the ground with ease. He watches her with a quiet realization that she's either too honest or too unaware to pretend. So he steps forward to introduce himself and ask her name, leaving her stunned and silent in her tracks. She says she has no name yet, but she'll make one based on a flower she once saw. She shouts out her new name, Kimnari, while Dune cheers along. They rush to build the stone fence and clear the way for the mandrakes to arrive. The tiny greenlings are thriving in their brand new spot, and he wishes he'd made the switch way back when. But then he sees Nari has gone quiet, and her face looks very strange indeed. He asks why she's crying, and she tells him that the mandrakes made her think of her friends. Dune is confused and thinks it's impossible for her to have friends in the lab. She suddenly sees a flash of herself hunting strange, weird creatures deep in the forest. The girl tells him she spotted a monster that looked like a chick, and he just shrugs it off as perfectly normal around here. He figured that a pack of monsters is probably attacking the chick right now. She said the thing looked like it was in pain and would soon be eaten because it had been hurt. Dune asks if she wants to save it, but her head aches because her old orders won't let her. He suggests that if she helps, the creature might survive and asks if she wants to go see, but instantly she screams that she'll be right back and flies off at high speed into the woods. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a horde of mantis monsters swarming down on their prey. The tiny white creature screams in pain as it's brutally struck on the desert floor, until a girl steps forward to shield it and shouts at the monster to stop hurting the little animal. With tears in her eyes, she vows with all her heart to save it. Then the scene shifts to a crying boy, while his friend might be chosen as a test subject for being the best. In another memory, a yellow creature lies alone and sad on the ground. The story jumps back to show kids punching a robot just because it wasn't like the others. Someone slams their fist into the floor with pure hate, screaming for everything to stop. As the girl was tossed through the air by the giant bug's powerful punch, she spun helplessly against the sky. Her anger boils over as she screams that bullying the weak is wrong and leaps to attack the beast. The camera shifts to Cheon Dune examining the plants, wondering if they taste good. The girl sprints toward him, bursting with joy that he's finally back. But her face drops into terror as she screams. The little creature isn't waking up. While the white shape stays limp in her arms, its eyes spinning in a dizzy blur. Cheon Dune tells her calm down, but then he spots something scary about that monster. The girl screams in despair that the beast has completely gone wild. The creature is still knocked out and looks terrible. Tears streaming down her face, she asks if he is dying as he steps closer to check on him. He channels his mana and whispers, "Thank goodness, it wasn't a fatal blow." The monster's energy faded, shrinking its size and changing its color, and he knew for sure it was the same immortal beast he had faced before. Shandun wonders why it got so small, while the girl worries if it will die. He explains that the creature isn't evil, just starving because it can't hunt. He poured a bit of mana into it, and now it can heal itself if you just leave it alone. The girl stops talking, lost in a sad memory of another creature left alone. She insists that leaving it will kill it, proving just how weak it is. With tears streaming down her face, she begs to bring it home, promising to care for it and teach it everything it needs to know. He grins and warns that it could grow huge, but she promises to keep its food small. Cheon Dune finally says yes, and the girl feels pure joy. The beast stirs awake, dripping with saliva and totally lost about where it is. Suddenly, Cheon Dune was startled when the creature spoke with a soft, pigeon-like coo. The beast snarls at him with pure rage, convinced he is the man who destroyed its family. The girl knows nothing while the creature shakes with pure terror. Happily, she lifts the animal to celebrate its return while it wonders what she was doing there. She holds it tight, but it screams for her to let go, leaving Cheon Dune confused even as it yells again to be released. Cheon feels shocked that he finally understood, and then the girl tells him the treatment is over and has picked a name for him. She suggests naming it Goo because it acts like a pigeon, and while Cheon Dune agrees, Goo gets annoyed that they're trying to rename something that already has a name. The girl thinks the plant is crying and dumps a bucket of water on it, worried it's thirsty, while Goo pleads for her to stop before it gets too wet. Seeing things pile up, Cheon Dune decides to build a shelf to keep everything neat. He begins measuring, but he doesn't need a lot of space. But when he tries to cut the wood with his knife, the blade won't pierce it, and he's confused because he made the table and chairs that way. Goo points out that the wood's color looks different. The one he's using feels much softer. Cheon wonders if different woods are hard, leaving shocking Goo stunned. The little animal begins to answer that the red ones are obviously the right choice, but then it pauses and notices something important. Goo is so stunned he asks if he really heard it right, while Cheon Dune just stares at the redwood. The animal looks suspicious and is on guard. Cheon Dune leans on his mind to read the truth, but a shadowy vision crashes into his thoughts, and deep in the woods, the redwood trees are nowhere to be found. Goo is so shocked that his telepathy was cut off instantly that he trembles and mentally wonders if Cheon Dune can hear him. He says it's not just hearing sounds, but feeling human words suddenly pop in his mind like thoughts. He wonders if it's stranger for a monster to understand human speech than for a human to do the same. We know Goo is a smart monster, a one-of-a-kind kind. Changing the topic, Cheon Dune asks right out if they haven't met before. Goo confirms he wants to find him again, leaving the big guy confused. He explained that after he was saved, he felt he had to help someone at least one time. Cheon-dun shouts that it's perfect and demands the help right now, leaving Gu frozen and unable to speak. Gu agrees to lead the way to the place where the red trees are growing. The scene shifts to the girl sprinting away from a massive explosion, screaming that she hates the lab. Lying on the ground, she cries out in despair at the blazing fire around her, complaining that it is too hot. A huge explosion blasts the girl away, leaving her panicking in terror as she thinks the lab is coming for her and fears the fire. A mysterious stranger steps out, and his tracker reveals the target is a mechanical beast. He steps out of the fire to save the kid, because sometimes doing what's right isn't cool, but it's necessary. He readies his fire attack, knowing that his own life hangs in the balance. He unleashes a huge burst of fire right at the helpless girl. As the girl shrinks away, the villain screams that he will end everything, and she bracing herself for the worst. Just then, Cheon-dun steps in to put out the fire, grumbling that he only wanted to finish fixing up his closet and grab a meal. Gu insists that saving the girl is their top priority. Dun's eyes sparkle with the realization that Kim Nari fears fire and is anything but normal. Cheon-dun chose to douse the flames first while Guy watched. The enemy is so shocked they order him out of the way, and now his time is running out. Cheon-dun silences the enemy by talking too much. The villain goes wild, screaming that Cha-don is an arrogant jerk, and throws another fire blast at him to move, but Cheon-dun just stands there, not even flinching. With just a point of his finger, a bright light springs to life. Just then, a huge blast of energy shoots at the man and wipes out all the fire. The enemy takes a full force hit, too stunned to understand what just happened as the explosion blasts him across the ground. Once the dust finally settles, he asks Nari if it's safe to move forward now. The little girl dabs away her tears. He was still shocked when the fire vanished in an instant. When she's scared, he tells her to just knock it out. Cheon-dun steps on the unconscious enemy's head to wake him up. He yanks hard on the guy's hair to lift him up, only to find he's just holding a wig. The enemy was actually bald with the number 19 tattooed on his forehead. No one expected the enemy to be a bald kid. Sunlight glints off the smooth, hairless top of his head. Nari bursts out laughing at the hilarious sight of the bald guy. She says, now he's not scary anymore, which leaves Cheon-dun thinking that this man is no one Kim Nari should fear or let get away. Gu says telepathy lets you see memories and send them right to someone else's mind. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a lab where a crazy scientist lets out a creepy, evil laugh. We get a close look at his face, where a twisted grin and wickedly gleaming glasses show just how bad he's got it. The slimy thing shrank back, and the scientist laughed, saying it finally got an ego. He reaches out with a glowing blue hand and calls it just a simple durability test. A bright flash erupts, proving the test was anything but friendly. Back in the present, Cheon-dun praises Nari, marking a brave step toward healing from their past wounds. He can't decide what to do with the guy, so Gu sits on his head while Nari comes up with a plan. With her hands on her hips, she proudly declares she's had a brilliant idea. The plan was just to tie the bald guy up underneath a massive waterfall. Nari explains that if the bald uncle gets wet, his fire goes out and he stops being scary, even as she keeps yelling that he's evil, only to get a pouty scolding from Cheon-dun, who thinks she's improving. Gu asks what he's up to. Don tells me he's going to get water for the ramen. Nari jumps up and shouts that his fish ramen is the best thing ever. He wonders if the Coco tribe enjoys eating ramen noodles too. She plunges into the water to hide her true form. The bald man hanging from the ceiling decides this guy must be a top-tier A-rank hunter. As Nari swims, he wonders if Cheon-dun holds even more power, thinking to himself that even a shadow hunter might find too much ramen. Suddenly, Nari pops up holding two strange fish and shouts that she caught them, but Cheon-dun says to use just one as she gets ready to toss the beast into the pot. The prisoner is absolutely terrified, fearing that boiling the monster will make everything smell terrible. Nari runs with pure joy, ready to devour the delicious ramen they are about to make. But halfway through, she shouts to halt everyone and make them wait a moment. The bald man looks defeated and offers to cook for them if they help him get down. Under the bright spotlight, the bald man gets ready for a challenge that some see as nothing more than a bowl of simple ramen. He opens the pack with great care, carefully separating each piece of seasoning. But right now, with that bowl of noodles in his hands, things felt a lot more serious. His life hung in the balance as the two of them glared back with terrifying energy. He sticks with the usual way because he simply doesn't know any other way to cook. He relies on his sixth senses to manage the water for the 3 packs. First, he tosses the noodles and spices into the rolling boil right on the dot. To keep everything under perfect control, he counts out 270 heartbeats. Right at that moment, he lifts the noodles and shouts, "It's time for the air bath," feeling proud he did his best even though he has no kimchi to go with it. A window pops up to show he has no regrets. He spins around and holds out the pot, beckoning the group to try what he has made. Shandun picks up a piece with his chopsticks and brings it to his mouth, ready to taste. The scene shows 4 people sitting at a table and enjoying their meal. Suddenly, everyone stood frozen in shock. The taste was a shock, so good it felt like eating in heaven. Nari loved the food and wondered if humans ever eat like that. Cheon-dun was just as shocked by the whole thing. After devouring every last bite, Gu lets out a happy burp, feeling completely full. The bald man walks up with a big smile and asks if the food tasted good. Cheon-dun tells him to ask for anything he wants, leaving the cook shocked. He told me the food was so delicious it couldn't possibly be free. He promised to grant a wish, but the bald man got so awkward he just stammered out a request instead. Suddenly, he bows down and begs Cheon-dun to teach him how to become as strong as the hunter, leaving our hero confused while the stranger claims to be the greatest hunter he has ever seen and asks to be his apprentice. He offers to whip up some dinner, proudly mentioning his dad taught him how to fry the best chicken. He even offers to run errands like a shuttle, but Cheon-dun stops him to ask why he attacked Kim Nari in the first place. He is confused until the hero whispers that she belongs to the Coco tribe. He nods with tears in his eyes as the bald man explains that the reasons are personal. He screams that he wants nothing but to pass the hunter test, not a reward. Cheon-dun summons him, but the man breaks down weeping and begs to know why. Grateful for the meal, the hero agrees to do a little fighting first, but then Nari jumps in to take on the bald guy herself. She recalls his words about knocking out fear and wants to try putting out the fire, but the man laughs at her, calling her weak for refusing to hurt him. The hero holds up a giant black rock, asks if he can break it, then nervously laughs and admits that even this diamond-hard black iron can only be shattered by someone of special rank. Suddenly, a rock shatters with a deafening crash, sending the man flying across the ground from the force of the impact. He's frozen in terror, his skin cold with sweat, completely lost on what just happened. Nari steps onto a stool and shouts for the bald uncle to finally face her in a fight. We meet Namkul, a hunter with a bright future who has just woken up. He woke up his powers when he was only 8, which was very unusual. He poured all his energy into training and unleashed his full power during the exam. By mixing his natural talent with hard work, he grew quickly. The hunter grew fast and became famous, enjoying a life filled with perfect days. He once dreamed of being the best, but then he woke up one day to find clumps of hair in his hands, and the crushing weight of despair hit him all at once. Just as everyone else woke up, his hair started falling out so fast that by his early 20s, he was completely bald. He looked for help at the clinics, but the doctor told him to just stop trying. Hearing that, the hunter cries out in despair, for there is no solution. The story turns back in time to show off his handsome looks and amazing talent. Back then, he shone bright, but soon he faded into the shadows. The outcome was a dead end, and they bombed the test badly. Now he lies spread out on the couch, staring at the TV while surrounded by a mess. He watches the news and hears about a strange thing happening in a famous doctor's work. The doctor admits he somehow spilled rare, liquid metal right on his head. Everyone was shocked when his hair started growing back, even though he was almost 90. Namkizio springs to his feet instantly, convinced that what he heard was a lie. But when the reporter asks the doctor about curing baldness, his answer leaves the man in shock. The scientist promises to use that metal to build a living machine for all of humanity. Outraged, Kyo shouts at the screen, insisting the cure was meant for all of humanity. Time moves on until he glances at his phone, and a news alert stops him in his tracks. The mechanical beast broke free and ran off into the dark world of the demons. With a fierce yell promising to find it, he pours the molten metal right over his own head. The scene shifts to show Kizuke lying face down in the dirt, completely confused about what just happened. Little Kim Nari cheered her win, even though he hadn't gotten a single hit. Desperate, he begs Dune not to give up on him and promises he will get better, while Dune finishes closing a closet and thanks Gu for showing him the wood. From far away, Kayak watches and thinks the guy has a lot of courage. He thought that even though he lost, something about it felt different. Even though it hurt, he felt free to use his flames again. Maybe he took off his wig to make Nari fight again. Gu jokes that his control isn't bad, but Dune reminds Nari that he is truly special. As Kais moves forward, he shouts that he will be the victor. She yells for him to fight, so he blasts a huge fire attack, but she catches it right in the air and stops it dead. He was shocked to see her power turn the flames into water, a trick called liquefaction. Seeing her chance, she leaps up and delivers a hard punch right to him. The impact blasts him into the mountain, carving out a deep crater. Nari beams with joy, thanking her uncle and declaring that she is finally brave enough to face the fire. Trapped in a hole, he believes he's reached the peak of a rank B hunter, yet he refuses to quit because a washed-up hunter like him won't get another chance. The man stands up to take another go at it. He felt his nose start to bleed. Don asks how many days he's been there. He answers 9. Dune tells him to turn back because that dangerous energy could kill him, but he insists Kyo has the special power of rank A. Kaisok tells Dune he's been failing for 6 years and is hopeless, but Dune refuses to believe him. He urges the hunter not to give up, and moved by the words, he promises to try his hardest and asks Dwan to keep a close eye on him. A portal swings open, a hunter steps through to ask if you need anything, and just before leaving, Kizio waves goodbye and cheekily wonders if you notice his wig. Dune replied that he saw nothing, leaving Kazook wondering where he had left it. As the portal snaps shut, Nari turns to Dwan and questions whether they should have done this, her heart heavy with the fear that someone might betray them. Dune gently reminds her that she has the gift of reading people's memories. She nods and says his hunger to get stronger is real. Don smiles, feeling excited to watch the man's adventure unfold. The scene shifts as Nari asks how Gu can see in the dark, but Gu replies he just needs to cut a window. With just one quick move, he opens up a perfect spot using his special power. Nari absolutely adores the brand new window. It's bright, just like Dune said we need to see by at night. So, the girl asks how it will happen. He tells us about a glowing stone that shines with its own light. Gu is desperate to know where to find it, but Dune warns that the only place left is the deadly volcanic region. Gu's sad face shows where he's from, leaving Nari completely confused. The girl snatches Gu and demands to know what Dune is saying. Dwan told me his voice sounded all wrong. Feeling too upset to let them worry, he decides to go alone, but Nari won't let him face it by himself and insists on coming along. She screams that the fire no longer scares her, and she's ready to go. Seeing how determined she was, Gu decided to stay and warn her that he still had some things to sort out there. Dune agrees and vows to craft protective gear for them. While the Mandrakes are out in the field, they spot Kissio's wig on the ground and start hitting it. The story moves us into a huge, deadly volcano filled with smoke, where a dark monster wails in the wasteland. We step into the volcanic zone, a place that hunters try hard to avoid. The ground tears your skin apart with hot ash, and poisonous air kills you in a heartbeat. Gu is so scared that the place feels like a big mystery he can't solve. While Nari plays dangerously with fire with a smile, Gu just finds it really strange. Dune says she's okay, but he warns that he's a Chimera hunter. He claims he used to be a monster, but now he has come back in a human form. Dune asks if Gu is okay, and the creature says it's not bad at all. He enjoys having a friend to chat with and believes they are good people, so when Nari comes to speak with Gu, Dune explains that his curiosity is what brought him there. She beams with excitement about being a native, only for Gu to laugh and call her a cheeky brat. Don shouts that the stones are right where the lava spits with the most force, but they keep going anyway. Nari stares in shock at how huge the crater really is. The tiny one dashes forward with excitement, shouting, "We finally made it to the top." There he finds the glowing stones, but spots a huge fire toad looking up at him with tears in its eyes. Suddenly, Nari points and shouts that another toad is right there, while Dune explains that the female carrying eggs had already died. Gu explains that now that she's gone, the eggs will die too because the crater is so hot. Nari feels bad for the sad toad who lost its partner, leaving Dwan thinking deeply. He asks Kim Nari to hold her ground and then steps forward to meet her. The hunter sprints toward the toad while the girl shouts, asking him where he's running. He didn't hesitate for a second. He walked straight up to the sad monster. As soon as he appeared, the toad snapped its jaws in a snarl. Gu screams for him to come back right now, but Dune keeps walking without a care. The monster shoots a blast of fire, making Nari scream in desperate terror. With a swift motion, he raises his hand and brings a glowing power to life. The hunter just dodges and taps the toad's head, which makes it calm down. He tells the toad to freeze, and the beast collapses. We showed he was poisoned with a paralyzing drug that will wear off soon. Nari screams in fear. Dune replies calmly that all is well. He tells us that fire toad cells can't bring the dead back to life, so he uses his power to save the eggs instead. As the male toad wakes up in a panic, Don reminds him to leave the eggs alone so they stay safe, but the toad just growls in anger. The hunter can't figure out what the beast is thinking, and he's totally lost. Then he notices the toad looks like it's saying goodbye to its partner. The monster gently touches its loved one last time with its sharp claws before heading on. Suddenly, the toad leaps into the air, and Nari gasps, thinking it just flew. It crashes down hard near Nari, staring straight at her with a heart full of thanks. The girl feels her heart swell as the fire toad leaps away one final time, taking its own path, and Nari whispers that it seemed to be thanking them for the journey. Dune nodded that the situation was fixed and finally reached out to grab one of the glowing stones. With a stone in his hand, little Nari jumps with joy. Nari thought the stones looked pretty. Dune tells her to watch out so she doesn't get hurt. He stuffs stones into his backpack while noticing Goose struggling and asking if he is okay. The beast just complains, but Dune says he doesn't need help and even brought a gift for his friends. Totally embarrassed, Guineas quickly declare that monsters can't have friends, but Dwan found it sweet that he missed his own kind. Goose says his only regret is not saying goodbye, so the hunter asks why he walked away from the pack. Once, Goo learned in his true shape, but could not speak, so when he wandered into a land of one-eyed monkeys and felt lonely for being the strange two-eyed one, he left to live all alone. While Goo assumes everyone has forgotten him, Nari stubbornly digs with all her might. Goo slips and drops a stone, and Nari hears the cracking sound. She glances down and lets out a warning, saying she found a monster egg buried right there. Dwyn looks closely at the egg, sees it's cracked, and figures out a fallen stone must have done it. Dune tells Nari that the beast must get out all by itself to get strong, which leaves her feeling very worried. The girl wants to take the egg, but Goo says no, and while they don't know what will hatch, Dune wonders if his own nest would be the perfect place for it. He has no choice but to grab it. Nari happily volunteered to carry everything. Dune points the finger at Goo as the cause, yet it fears Nari might still end up hurt. The hunter flashes a confident smile and promises that everything will be okay. The scene changes and they reach home, with Nari holding the egg safe and sound. Kishio shows up and asks Dwan where he's been. He offers to carry the things, but Dune hesitates. The hunter tries to prove he's strong by grabbing the heavy backpack, but after he lifts it, Dune tells him to look up and points out the damage on his face. We spot Goo's gift, a pack of ramen that gets accidentally crushed. Goo's old band stumbles upon the special gift he left for them right there on the hot volcano floor. Confused, they rip open the box and start happily munching on the raw noodles. As the hunter steps up to Nam Kizio and asks about the damage to his face, Dune remarks that he had no idea Kyoak had taken such a beating. Kyoak boasts that Nari never misses a hit. Noticing the leader's look, he quickly changes the topic and shouts that he's bringing out the food. The scene changes to Dwan using a knife to carve a glowing stone. Nari steps up with a curious look and asks what he is up to. He says he'll hang it up from the ceiling because it will look great. Nari praises him, calling him very smart and saying he explains things perfectly. She also notes that he appears kind, recalling the time he helped the monster. The girl smiles and says he looks a lot like her dad. Dune looks shocked and wonders if her father from the Coco tribe is safe. Next, the scene opens to a gorgeous sunset under perfect skies. But Goo, lying on the sand, complains that his body is almost melting. He can't handle the heat and falls asleep right there, snoring loudly, until a giant shadow with two glowing red eyes suddenly appears in front of him. It turned out to be a group of tiny things leaping in to surprise Goo. A tiny creature whirled around with its special trick to hit Goo, but the blow strikes his belly, sending the creature flying backward. Goo spins around annoyed, and Nari steps up to ask why they've been fighting. Namkasak bursts in to say the wait is finally over, carrying a plate of carefully made fried tofu on a jerry. The guy feels a swell of pride because his simple recipe always leaves people impressed. With everyone seated around the table, he invites them to dig in and says the meal turned out pretty good. But before they begin, Dune asks one more time what happened to his face. Tio gets embarrassed and fumbles around, making up an excuse. He says he went to the Hunters Association to take a test for a new job. Dune says he fought back after being mocked for failing, but Kyo insists the jokes about his hair were too much to take, even though Dune reminds everyone he just shaved his head and isn't actually bald. Outraged, Kyo begins a speech to explain that hair loss is a total mystery. Dwan asks about the exam date, and he answers that it is in 60 days, prompting Dune to declare special training, which makes Kyo thrilled. He tells the guy his first job is to wash the dishes. Then he tells the hunter to scrub the bright stones until the ash turns them gray. Ko complained, but Dune offered him a way to stay B-rank if he really wanted it. With that, he calls Nari to go fishing and leaves the poor guy behind to deal with the chores. The guy stands speechless, watching the two walk off, but then he looks at the pile of dirty dishes and finally gets why his leader did it. He stepped forward with a fierce new purpose, proving to everyone that he was indeed a hard-working genius. Nam Kaisak is proud that his hard work earned him a B rank, and we see he trusts his own strength to carry him through to the very end. He shouts that he's coming and darts through the trees to catch up, while at the riverbank, Nari grumbles that the fish aren't biting. Then she realizes the fish aren't swimming away, but are all swimming straight toward Kyo. He screamed in pure terror, knowing that those water monsters were the one thing he could never fight. Dune urges him to use his magic, but Kayak shakes his head, saying it's impossible. As his friend struggles, Dwan snatches the glowing stones and comes up with a plan. He passes the item to Kisio and tells him to hold it. Suddenly, dark energy surged inside the stone, shaking the hunter with its terrifying power. He screams that it is evil power, but Dune points out that some stones hold that kind of energy. They explain that you must first shape your raw power into refined mana before letting it go. Dune taps his chest to show he already holds mana, but admits he simply doesn't know how to control it. You can see glowing mana channels spreading across his entire body. He tells Kyo that a new path has opened, and he must take it right now. The hunter stares at his hands while Dune urges him to push the magic through them. Kyoak narrows his eyes, focuses his strength, and strains to hoist the heavy stone. He grips his teeth tight and struggles to keep the wild energy from taking over. He screams in triumph and finally heaves the heavy stone high into the air. The guy figured it was just practice, but Dune told him to keep washing the dishes. Pumped with excitement, Coke takes on the job and promises to keep everything sparkling. The scene changes to night, with their camp lit by the moon. Inside the rough cabin, everyone slept soundly after a long day of training. Kyoak mumbled in his sleep, while Dwan rested quietly next to Nari. Gu regretted going to sleep early in his nest because he suddenly felt wide awake, and right then, he spotted Nari creeping through the dark. He couldn't help but wonder why that girl was out so late at night. At the riverbank, Nari stared at the water with a heavy heart. She felt sorry that her clothes were now dirty, especially since the mister had given her only this one outfit. She tries to feel better by promising that a good washing will make it clean again. Hidden, Dwan and Gu watched as he realized she had no other clothes to change into. The girl stops scrubbing and smiles with relief because the stain is finally gone. With a magical shine, she dries the clothes and is happy the job is perfect, until Dune suddenly appears and startles her into asking what he's doing there. He pretends he was just taking a walk, and the girl plays along, saying she was out for a stroll too. Dune walks up to her and asks her to stop moving for just a second. He wraps a vine around his waist to make a belt and adds a flower as a tiny decoration. Nari is totally amazed by the gift and tells him it looks absolutely beautiful. She said the flower looked just like his and was her favorite. Suddenly, a huge scream bursts from the trees and makes them jump in fear. Nari is so terrified by that noise that she asks what it was, and her fear only grows. Dune just gave a small smile, like he already knew exactly what was going on. He tries to soothe Nari by telling her it was only a steel grasshopper, a B-rank monster. As he walks back, he asks if she needs anything else, like new clothes or shoes, but Nari tells him she really likes the outfit he gave her. The scene changes as Dune steps through a portal into a human city to help, even though he knows it wasn't right for her to have just one outfit. He wanted to take her along, but her pain was still too deep to risk it. He chuckles at the idea of using a portal stone for such a silly task and keeps searching for a shop. He was wondering if the shop had closed when a voice suddenly called out to him. A grubby kid offers to lead him to a great shop for just 10,000. The boy studies Dune and decides he's a loaded beginner hunter. He asks if the man has cash for clothes, then tells him to follow him ahead. The boy promises to make an exception, and Dune stammers out a clumsy thank you. They step forward and tell us their names, Ungu and Cheon Dune. Bonga shares his thoughts on the police. He asked if Dune had just woken up, which left him quite surprised. Bongu says he walked through the portal with nothing, so something must have stolen it from him. Dune tries to lift the boy's spirits by reminding him that he already knows so much for his age. Bongu snaps, yelling that he is already 17. He's only small because he hasn't had any food yet. He points at a group of guys and warns Dune to steer clear of District 13 if he can. The space gang has taken over the place, and the police have already given up. Hearing that, Dwan wonders if the orphanage where he lived still stands there. The scene changes to a shop sign offering to buy one get one free deal. Inside, the owner sighed, wishing he never had to run a business in the slums. She stared at the empty shop and seriously thought about changing jobs to survive. Bonga shouts for the boss, annoying her, while Dune surveys the scene as Bong Su tells her he's a hunter. The woman calls out to Bong Su at the corner, grabs him tight, and warns him not to drag her into ruin by bringing along poor hunters. The lady points to Dune on the kid's shelf, and Bongu tries to tell her he's handsome. She tells him she only helped because they looked like her late younger brother, but Bongu argues back until Dune jumps in to speak. Dune insists he wants to buy clothes and reveals a check filled with all the money he has left. They were stunned to find the check for 10 million and won, far more than he ever imagined. The shop owner's mood flips instantly as she claps her hands excitedly over the money, suddenly treating Dune like a king and leaving him confused. She asks what he wants, and he asks for clothes for a little girl and for himself. The lady beams with joy and shouts that the house specialty is kids' clothes. She stands in a yellow dress and explains the key role of lace in fashion. Then she picks up a sporty outfit, just right for active kids. Then a pink dress showed up, and she declared that color was a must, leaving her with a receipt that looked like it would never end. The shop owner is too tired to move, but she beams with joy over the sold out sign hanging proudly among the empty clothes racks. She claims he bought more than 100 things, but Dune promises he'll carry them all. He slips a bag of cash into Bong Su's hands, leaving her staring in shock at the generous tip. As the pair walks out of the shop with their new things, Dune asks for one last favor. Bongo leads him to an inn, promising it was clean and safe. Dune tells the boy to wait right there before he heads into the inn with the sack over his shoulder. When Bongo saw that, he grew suspicious and sensed something was wrong. He stares at the cash and clothes, scared to run away from kidnap, but then he thinks of Boss Park and wonders if Dwon might actually be a good guy. Dune steps out of the inn and nods, convinced that the place is truly excellent. He gives the boy a key to open room 303. The guy reveals he covered a year's rent and food, leaving Bong Su stunned. He says goodbye to leave, but the boy asks if he's going to get kidnapped now. The wound can't answer Bongo's question, so Bongo needs to find out what he really wants. He says they hardly know each other, so he doesn't get that much kindness all at once. The wound whispers a goodbye to the past as he steps through the portal, and back at camp, Nari's question about his absence is met with a gift that leaves the girl jumping for joy and Goose staring in awe at the fresh pile of clothes. Nari snatched up a yellow dress and cheered because every single outfit looked so beautiful. Dune told her to try on whatever she liked, and the little girl ran into the cabin to do just that. Inside, the mysterious egg goo was hatching when it suddenly started shaking. As Dune folded his clothes, he found it strangely soothing. Just then, Goo shouts for him to go check on little Nari. A girl stepped out in a fresh dress, telling me she thought that model looked very pretty. Dune asks if that's her favorite, but Nari shakes her head and says she'd rather try something new. She has a blast trying on everything, even playing pretend as a ghost. Noticing how excited the girl is, Dune smiles and remarks that she is really very cute. After a moment, she huffs, stomps her foot, and declares that she has picked her new style. She pops up in a fluffy hoodie, screaming how much she loves it because it looks like goo, and the protagonist agrees with her choice and asks if she wants to fold clothes, which she accepts right away once she sees the huge pile. But Goo starts worrying about where they'll keep all that stuff. Dune shows her his plan to grow the house just to make a special closet for her. He tells her not to worry, because he's already found someone to chop the wood you need. Right where he pointed, a massive explosion tears through the forest. From the dust rises Namkasak, declaring he is ready to begin his training. He bowed and claimed he looked after the gear perfectly, which left Dune completely puzzled. He explains that the leather tunic is the training uniform, and it's soaked in deadly poison. Kyoak gets super excited, thinking this is the secret to getting stronger, so Dune tells him to just put on the outfit without a second thought, leaving Kyoak completely shocked. The protagonist commands him to put on the gear and start chopping wood, which sends Kyo into a total panic. Just then, a puppy barks in panic as they rush to find the giant egg cracking open with glowing lava inside. Dune shouts that the creature's movements are violent and it looks like it's about to hatch, so Coach hides in terror, wondering if a disaster rank monster is going to emerge. But Nari insists it can't be true, and a super cute monster is definitely going to be born. Suddenly, the egg shatters and both of them scream in fear. From inside, a sharp claw and a scaly tail burst out, ripping open the shell. The beast had a vicious tongue, and all signs pointed to a truly dangerous monster. Much to everyone's shock, a tiny, adorable yellow snake popped out. Nari is completely enchanted by the tiny creature, while Kyoak just can't figure out what kind of animal it is. The tiny monster leaps off the table, bursting with energy to burn. The strange beast suddenly jumps high into the air, leaving everyone stunned by its chicken legs. The object lands squarely on Kyoak's face, leaving him frozen in place. Desperate and screaming, he runs blindly until he tears the wooden structure apart. With goo dripping from his head and time running out, Kyo finally grabs the logs to get the work done. He gasped for air, choking on the poison, and couldn't help but wonder how Dune could stand there wearing it. Meanwhile, the hero stretched out, feeling happy, realizing that folding clothes was actually fun. Suddenly, a loud shout breaks his moment, warning that the strange new creature is devouring the bread. Nari holds the tiny creature and says he's so good because he knows she saved him. She gets the idea to call him Sasa, because he looks like a snake. Sasa appears to love the name and dashes across the field, leaving Nari in the dust. Dune watches the two of them play and notes that Nari seems to like the new addition to the family. He wonders if it's a rare creature, but Gu shakes his head and says he's never seen one like it before. Gu warns that if the beast comes from the volcanic zone, they need to keep a close eye on the mandrakes. Dune couldn't figure out, so all we could see were tiny plants pushing up from the ground nearby. They explained that monsters grow from love plants, but Sasa attacks one without thinking. Gu keeps talking about how they love plants with dark energy, and Sasa is ready to eat the mandrakes. The beast dashes at the tiny plants to strike them down. They say he is their natural enemy, so the mandrakes are getting ready for a fight. As the plants began to grow, Dune knew Gu had been right all along. Nari worries and offers to end the fight with kindness, but Dune stops her, reminding her that in the demon realm, they must settle their hierarchy first. He says we should just watch them for now, since they're still young and not very dangerous. Sasa watches the tiny Mundere, who looks terrified as the predator approaches. He rushed forward with all his might, locking eyes on the target he thought was the weakest. Just then, another Mundere jumps in and uses its stick arms to block the blow. The beast blocks the strike, and they leap into a formation to push back. Just as we guessed, the second mandrake seizes the opportunity and lunges forward to strike. Sasa takes the enemy's strike right on the stick, trying to throw it back. He shields himself with his tail and offers a small smile, but Gu warns that it's too early to cheer. Suddenly, the third Mundere sneaks up on a distracted Sasa and smashes into him from the back. The third Mundere hits hard with real power, proving it isn't just messing around. As the team rushed in together, the tiny plants trapped Sasa against a corner with no escape left. Instead of fighting, the beast breaks down crying, stunned by the first time it's been hit. Nari rushes to settle the chaos, while Dune notes that the mandrakes won today. After Kaisak calls the fight strangely epic and Gu agrees it was a great show, Gu sends Kyoak back to work, leaving Kyoak wondering if Gu is actually human. Suddenly, the view changes to a huge ocean stretching out under a bright, clear sky. Then, a massive beast bursts from the water and rockets up into the sunlight. A creature that is half human and half dragon is shown, with huge wings and a strong body. He looks wild and wears a Fong necklace that makes him seem super powerful. Back in the present, the log cabin is finally built with its wooden logs fitting together perfectly. While Kyo gave his all, Gu yelled at him to pick up the pace. Nari and Sasa joined in too, slathering the wood with green sap and having a blast while they worked. Meanwhile, Dune sorted his books onto a fresh shelf as the hard labor finally ended, leaving the old leather tunic on the ground. Kisak lets out a shout of relief, finally cheering at the end of that terrible training. He wept from sheer exhaustion after 2 long days of grueling work with no sleep at all. Even though he followed every single order perfectly, a knot of doubt still tightened in his chest about the final outcome. A wound suddenly appears and congratulates him that the build is even better than expected, while Nari jumps in to say the new closet smells like flowers. They all feel a strange calm wash over them and realize the air smells like lavender. The protagonist said that Gu picked fragrant woods to make the clothes always smell nice, and the mandrakes looked so calm and happy while soaking in the sweet scent that filled the air. Even Sasa curled up in the corner to sleep, proving he loved that smell just as much as the others. Dune wondered about the name Sasa, and Nari explained it was Kishio's idea, but Dune added that they could change it if they found something better. Kyo suggests the snake Dick, leaving the protagonist completely stunned and unable to speak. Nari gets excited and suggests Piaki, but Dune thinks it sounds too much like Gu. Gu stops us to speak in fancy words about footprints hiding inside a drawer. The protagonist recalls having a name, only for Gu to reveal that he is known as Rocky Mountain Hoof. Everyone agreed that since all the other options were terrible, Sasa was the only choice worth making. Gu asks what the plan is now that the house is bigger, leaving the gang curious, but Dune just smiles and says things are different now that there's a family. He thinks they should build a tall fence to keep everyone out when he isn't home. Coco thinks no one would dare go there, but the protagonist warns that an S-rank monster could show up. To make this happen, Dune claims they must gather heavy stuff soaked in spooky power from seaside. He tells us that down in the deep sea lies yellow quartz, a stone harder than any we know. The protagonist already sees the fence with glowing stones, turning the site into a cozy camp by night. He didn't waste a second. He shouted for everyone to get ready and head straight to the coast. Kaisak freezes with fear, knowing this spot is a place of deadly danger. Kyo spots a way out but shouts that he must unleash his power and can't leave just yet. He tells Dune to stay safe because the coast is locked away for anyone who isn't high enough in rank. Above all, 2 terrifying disaster monsters rule over that whole area. Kazook is puzzled that he doesn't know this yet, So he explains that they are Chimera hunters who escaped a lab, noting that while their heads are now birds, their bodies still look human. Now we see the winged creature soaring proudly through the skies of that place. Suddenly, the hunters see the monster and scream for the tracker to get ready right away. One of them forms a ring of golden energy to mark the target that just showed up. He throws the ring with every ounce of strength he has, sending it flying straight at the creature like a speeding missile. The blast flares bright as the beast takes a direct hit and runs away, leaving the hunter to wonder if those scary rumors about its strength were just lies. The group leader shouts for them to wait so the tracker can lead them after the two, while far away a man wonders how they are still alive in human bodies after 60 years. A superior tells them they've failed and that today is the day they will finally wipe out that mistake. But one of the team members, watching the scene unfold, stares in amazement and calls out to the leader. Peering through binoculars, the lookout spotted the creature not running away, but spinning around to face them. He panics as the beast charges straight at them to attack. In a panic, the leader screams at everyone to build a shield right this second. The beast drops down faster than it should, getting ready to smash right into the wall. But the shield explodes into a million fragments, hurling the leader away with a violent crash. Dust kicked up into the air as everyone stared in shock, realizing the barrier had crumbled from just one hit. The monster readies itself in the air, and the hunters know exactly what's coming next. That's when another monster shows up and the two begin to fight fiercely. Lying on the ground, the leader shouts in confusion and orders everyone to stop the crazy thing they're doing. But the scene shows little Nari punching the monster and yelling for him to stop hurting the weak. The creature is confused by the attack and starts to wonder if the little girl might be a chimera too. Next, Dune and Nari look down at the two giant monsters without any fear. Nari calls the Birdman a bully, but the protagonist sees the situation completely the other way around. The hunter aimed his device at Dune and warned that a mechanical beast was hiding there. As the protagonist thinks back to the tracker on Nari, they suddenly see the trouble it will cause. Our hero can't believe he's meeting that same guy again. He steps closer to the Birdman and asks if he has forgotten him. Dune reveals they were once roommates, leaving the creature stunned as it realizes the man it thought was dead is actually coming back to life. Seeing the scene, one hunter tells the guy that things look suspicious and they'd better get out of there. But Dune knows they can't just turn back now, or it will be a big problem. He decides to clear the area, and the Birdman finally remembers everything. A flashback brings back the smell he once caught in the cell, a scent he never managed to forget. It turned out they were the only two who knew that special scent, like secret guinea pigs holding the key. The creature calls him number 17, proving they've known each other for ages. The tale jumps back 66 years to a spooky forest right next to the TDA lab. Beams of light slice through the darkness as someone screams out, trying desperately to grab their attention. A little girl holds tight to her brother, shivering as they run away. He limps forward with sore legs, asking himself if making that choice was the right one. He wonders if it would have been easier to just leave the girl there. The Birdman sighs in sorrow, knowing his wings are no good now that he can't fully change into a bird. She tells him her wings are warm, but he waves it off, saying it's just enough for her to keep running, then shouts for Gia to hold on a little longer as they nearly break through the forest, only for him to freeze suddenly upon spotting someone who might help them. Number 17 stood before him, leaving the Birdman stunned by what he saw. The boy told us he heard in the lab that the other side effects were really bad. He warns that even if he runs away, a blast spell will kill him in just 3 days. The Birdman gets annoyed and says he doesn't know what it's like to live that way. The story jumps back to a memory where his sister begs them to run away from there. With tears streaming down her face, she begged to just be back to normal for a single day. The Birdman holds his sister close and wonders if the length of our lives matters or if it's about living freely for just one day. Then he fills with courage and challenges number 17, telling him to stop stalling and fight. The boy stood frozen with a serious look, but then number 17 shocked everyone by popping a huge portal right behind him. The Birdman stares in shock, wondering how someone managed to get hold of such a powerful portal stone. The boy says that in the world of demons, his human cells will either die or the monster ones will wake up. He says if that guy truly wants freedom, now is his best shot at living like a monster. But the lab's explosion spell wouldn't work there, and while he could theoretically survive it by building up enough magic to block the dark energy, he's still wondering if a normal person could do the same. The Birdman distrusts the helpers, but when he sees the guards coming, he's about to go until the boy stops him, pointing out that they lived together for 4 years without ever learning each other's names. Yubum introduces himself, and then curiously asks his Selly for his name. With a flicker of hope, he reached out and told him his name was Chaeyon Dune. Suddenly, it's now, and Dune looks at two hunters and asks, "What is your name?" The squad leader looks completely baffled, shaking his head and admitting he has no idea why he ever walked through that door. Dune swings the portal wide and commands everyone to forget what they've seen, which has Gyuri suspicious of the trick. It turns out he has cells that wipe away other people's memories, and a lot has happened because of it. He looks at the Birdman, calls him Yubum, and the Birdman is shocked that he remembers. Little Nari walks up and tugs on Dune's shirt while calling him Mister. She wonders if he and Uncle Sparrow are pals, and Dwan says yes, leaving Yubum puzzled. In a sweet moment, the girl tells Yubum that her tribe and the Sparrow tribe are friends, and after he doesn't understand a word, Nari apologizes for wrongly thinking he was bad. Suddenly, hunger hits her, and she asks for food, leaving Yubum to wonder if she could be Dwan's daughter. The scene jumps to a huge house on the sand that looks like a giant bird's nest. Dwan cheers on the builder for doing an amazing job on the giant nest. He then offers them a bowl of his cooking and asks them to try it. A massive grilled shellfish from the demon realm, so tender it felt like butter, was the dish. Little Goo doesn't wait a second before getting ready to taste that strange treat. He was stunned by the taste, feeling a wave of freshness so strong it was like he'd swallowed the ocean. Nari was blown away by the food, watching the shellfish seem to dance with every bite she took. Dune tries the red moss and finds it makes everything taste better, almost like a secret seasoning. Yubum is happy they enjoy the food, but he asks them to take their time while eating. Suddenly, the Birdman is hit by a wave of panic, his eyes going wide as something startles him. Dune sees his friend shaking with despair, too scared to speak a word. It turns out Nari was stabbing him with a knife, screaming that she wanted more food, but with sparkling eyes she asked if he'd make more if she caught the shellfish herself. She dashes to the beach with Goo and Sasa, shouting that she'll get 10. Yubum remarks how amazing it is that Dune was brought back to life by immortal cells. Don wonders if he still wants revenge on the TDA lab for everything they've done. He sometimes says yes, but since life isn't so bad, he'll just take a breath and think calmly. He turns the question back on them, pointing out that the explosive spells are still trapped inside their bodies. Dune grew worried, asking why his head still wasn't back to normal. With a calm look, the Birdman says he could turn back to normal, but he won't. He says Gia's face turned pale because she'd feel terrible if she were the only strange one around. Don stares hard and asks one final question to make sure he really knows the truth. He tells his friend he has only a month left, and the Birdman nods, showing he understands. Yubum starts to remember how tough it was for him when he first arrived there. He explains that he collected mana to keep going until he could mix it with demonic power to find balance. Because of this, he and his sister enjoyed a long time of peace while they meditated together. But one day, Gia's mana hole got tangled up, and her dark energy turned wild and dangerous. Trying to help, he forced it open and accidentally snapped his own manicure. He says Gia eats poisonous fruit just to sleep and hold back the evil power. Dune shows that Mundare can heal Mundare's manicore right away. The story moves to a dark cave where a tiny creature cowers in the shadows. Suddenly, Gia begins to scream in pain as her body changes. She twists in agony as dark red evil power takes full control of her. Yubum stares in shock, asking Dun if they can truly survive this. He explains that after studying pharmacology in the lab, he only needs a bit of Mundara water. We see the Mundara, a plant beast that lets out a loud scream whenever someone pulls it from the ground. Even though their roots look useless, they're hiding a secret power. They drink in the dark energy of demons and turn into a glowing well of life, ready to heal even the worst sicknesses. Dune grinned, admitting it was a smart move, and he was off to grab some. Yubum gently reminds his friend that he needs an alchemist and can't enter the human world while the curse is still active, insisting they can't make the journey alone until it breaks. Dune promises to look after the kids, but Yubum frets over having no money, so the hero makes a giant backpack appear to spark the Birdman's curiosity and tells him it's packed with hunting gear that should be plenty. With everything set, Dune waves goodbye and grins as he heads off. The scene shifts to him walking through the city as someone confirms what he is searching for. Now it's Obang Su's turn, and his guide is asking if he'd like a real alchemist. The boy tells you to trust him since they just opened an alchemy club in the slums. When Dune asks why the boy wears heavy weights on his arms, the boy explains that it gives him extra strength to keep going. He admits he wants to grow as strong as Dune, catching her slightly off guard. The boy says he looks up to him for stepping into the demon world using only his own body. After walking some more, Bonga shouts that they finally made it. He mentioned that a new manager named Mr. Kim has arrived, and people say he's really good at his job. Dune glances to the side and looks like he sees something coming down the street. The guide points out the manager, who is looking very worried while talking on the phone. He tells us that the man is getting another call from a loan shark, which is something that happens there often. They say he used to work at the Golden City branch before they forced him down here. Dune feels he must have messed up, but Bong-Soo says that isn't true. He says that in Golden City, one of his bosses stole the subsidy money. The boy recalled that it was, and the famous director known for taking credit for others' work. When manager Kim spoke up about the secret plan, they called him troublesome and kicked him out. Back in the present, Bong-Gu says hello, and the manager knows him right away. He presents Dune, mentioning that his friend is in search of a skilled alchemist. Dune thought that high alchemists are rarely seen there. The manager feels warm, thinking Bong-Soo is a kind neighbor, waves goodbye to the train, and then invites Dune to come in. Inside, an employee complains that only lowly hunters ever turn up. Just when he thought he'd quit trying to get promoted, the room door suddenly swung open. The manager walks in with Dwan, and the assistant stands up to welcome him, but Dune stops him, noting that this newcomer looks like an A+ rank alchemist who could be very helpful. The manager shook his head, saying he just didn't have the story to go on in the slums. Dune asks if this will leave the manager in a state of shock. The air was thick with dark demonic power, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that these were Mundare roots. They were both amazed, having never seen roots so fresh and perfect before. Don says he'll pay using things from the coast and wants to know their worth. From his backpack tumbled black pearls and rare corals, leaving the manager with his mouth wide open. He grew so emotional that even headquarters had never seen anything like an S-rank black pearl. To make matters worse, that giant demon realm shellfish was still alive and attacked the assistant. To make things even cooler, he pulls out red moss, a super rare ingredient needed to brew powerful potions. Dune wonders if that pays for itself, but the manager laughs and says it's worth more than a whole building. He warns that he'll need the lab's special scanner to value these expensive things. As the assistant walks away, Dune spots something strange and starts to get suspicious. He points to the jar, but the manager explains that Mundare has been dead for 10 years. The man claims he saved it for study, yet Dune insists the creature is truly alive. While the manager knows nothing, a blue glow begins to rise from Dune's hands. As soon as it takes a sip of mana, the creature snaps into action. The manager goes crazy as he realizes the power went out because everyone is too tired to keep it on. Just as he says it can't be done, 3 dark figures suddenly show up at the door. It was Director and that rotten old boss with a wicked grin and 2 helpers waiting to do her bidding. He makes fun of the spot while the shaking manager asks why he even came there. The director tells us that something incredible has come to the slums. The manager panics, convinced his assistant betrayed him because they arrived so quickly, but the villain gloats that he has incredible twin-powered underlings who made it happen. The director looks him up and down and asks if he brought those valuable items. He introduces himself as director and invites him to Golden City with a promise. Dune suddenly got annoyed, ruining the good relationship he had with manager Kim. The director offers a contract to win him over, but Dune brushes it aside and points out a mole on his face instead. He asks the man who in backdock is to the director, catching him off guard. With loud laughter, the director reveals that the man was his grandfather. Dune looks at that family's bad genes with pure disgust, thinking their bloodline is truly rotten. The story jumps back in time to show a man making fun of a tiny monster trying to find its mom. Holding a whip, he threatens to open the gate and fling the boy into the demon realm, screaming that the boy should go beg his parents to save his worthless life. Suddenly, a surge of blue light erupts from Dune and blasts the director flying backward. The director collapses to the ground, lost in confusion, while Dwan calls him out, saying he's just like his grandfather. He says that man only knows how to crush people with power and grab what he wants by force. With a scary look, he demands to know if the TDA lab is still on that floor, but Ji Young just yells that he has never heard of such a place. Dune reveals that Inbok worked at an illegal lab, which makes Gong furious and order him to stop disrespecting the dead, especially since Gong's grandfather gave his life to research. The scene shows the grandfather accepting an award, where he proudly shares that the old man even won a peace prize. With a smirk, Dune says that after killing so many kids, he decided to make his repentance public. He remarks that he expected the old man to live longer, wonders if the fall from the window was the cause, and makes Gong panic while admitting he doesn't understand how she knows about something that wasn't even public news. The grandfather tumbles to the ground, and Dune steps forward to admit that he pushed him. In a flashback, we see a tiny figure of Dune silhouetted against a shattered window as he watches the fall, revealing that the old man had threatened to toss the kids into a portal, so he pushed him first. Dune promises to let him dig into his grandfather's past and the secrets of the TDA lab. They say he tracked down Bochdio's grandson and kicked off his experiment right at 9 o'clock. His monster form started appearing when he was 20, and now he barely remembers those days. Back then, he lived in a wild place where only the strong survived. He just followed his orders and instincts like a robot with no real thought or understanding of what he was doing. The camera shifts to him sitting alone in the office, staring at the empty space as if years have passed since that moment. Manager Kim rushed into the room, beaming with excitement as she thanked him for waiting. He passed over 2 bottles of clean water, telling me the ingredients were top-notch. Don steps up to cover the cost, and right away suggests signing a personal deal with him. He just needed to gather the ingredients, and the manager would handle the mixing. The man stares in shock at the offer, but Dune reminds him that with this much money, he could buy a whole building. Dune is puzzled by the manager's tears until the man explains that he comes from the slums. A memory flashes back to his parents borrowing a massive sum from scary loan sharks. He says that even though he spent his whole life trying to pay off his debt, he never really got any closer to finishing. Back in the present, the manager cries a lot and keeps asking how he could ever repay such amazing kindness. Dune soothes him, telling him not to worry since he'll need his help down the road. The view shifts up to the sky, where he turns back home, praying all is well. When he arrives, he spots the ground stained and quickly realizes he's made a huge mistake. He looks at the Birdman's body and wishes he'd guessed that Gia would freak out. From inside his clothes, little Sasha begs her to stop, but it's to no avail. The skull-masked beast lets out a wild roar, completely out of control and blinded by rage. In a split second, she lunges at the Birdman, grabs him tightly, and hurls him away. The poor guy was slammed hard onto the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust from the impact. He lands in a tiny crater and knows there's no way to fix it now. But then Gu looks worried and asks if his uncle is okay after that fall. Nari screams out, asking if it hurts too much, while Gu scolds him for getting hurt. Even with a wound in his side, he vows to Dune that he will keep his promise no matter what. It turns out he's doing this because Dune saved their lives before. He launches several feathers like sharp missiles straight at the creature. He steps forward for one last strike, whispers his goodbyes, and wishes her a happy life in the world to come. Just as it happens, his strike forces a tiny spark of red energy out of her, and right then it bursts into a giant ball of light that startles everyone. Flying nearby, Dune freezes in shock and wonders what that giant thing could be. Perched atop a pink bubble, Dune thinks she's definitely passed out by now. Gu gets angry and shouts that she's his sister, but Dune asks if there's a better way, so the stammering Birdman changes the topic to ask about the medicine. Dune shows her the 2 potions and orders her to take one, telling her the other belongs to him. The scene changes to night, where they sit around a crackling campfire with empty bottles scattered on the ground. While Gu chews on something calming, Gia and Nari drift off to sleep. All of a sudden, a yellow eye blinked open in the dark, showing that someone had finally woken up. It was all just a false alarm, so Nari kept sleeping right through it with a loud snore. Gia opens her eyes, runs her fingers over her mask, and wonders if she is still dreaming. She holds her breath for a second to take in where she stands. By the fire, she spots the Birdman and Dune, who instantly realizes she has woken up. Scared, she jumps up and yells, demanding to know who those 2 men are. Nari wakes up drowsy and asks if Aunt Sparrow has risen, leaving Gia quite confused. The girl is overjoyed to see Giol, who is still eager to learn who Dune is. He brushes off her question and demands she look at her mana hole, leaving her stunned. She looks down and sees her mana hole is fine, but still stunned. She hears her brother ask what happened and who those people were. He recalls her constantly saying she wanted to see him, which left Gia in shock. A memory flickers in her mind, and she finally wonders if that might be number 17. She nudges her brother to double-check, and he confirms, yes, it's him, so the Birdman reflects with no doubt. This time he saved us again, only for Dune to ruin the moment by asking, without any care, if there is more red moss. Anyway, Gia finally drops the tension and takes off her mask. She smiles warmly as she says thank you for saving everyone's life. Suddenly, Nari spun around, pointed out into the water, and asked what it was. The girl dashes to the seashore, shouting that something is shining brightly in the water, though Jay says it's a sea fairy and Nari just doesn't get the name. People say they're sea monsters, but they got that nickname just because they're so pretty. The girl is absolutely amazed, and Gia tells them they should head home as soon as the sun comes up. Upon hearing this, Dune recalls that following the fairies might lead him to yellow quartz. Dune asks how much longer until sunrise, and the Birdman replies that it's probably soon, then smirks and says he'll go for a swim since it's been a while. The scene changes to a room where a man in a lab coat is looking for a mechanical creature. The low-ranking hunter admits the beast is hiding in the coastal area because they weren't strong enough to catch it. He kept on talking, saying that even top-tier hunters who went there came back with no memory, right as the phone on the desk rang with a call from the executive director, An Ijong. Over on the other side, the director leans in and asks if he happens to know of a TDA research lab. He shakes his head and says he's never even heard of such a place. He stammers as he tries to defend his school, insisting it's not the kind of place people think it is. Sitting all by himself in the room, he remembers Professor Anaxio always telling him to be an honest researcher. Hanyangdu hangs up with a creepy grin, promising he'll never forget his master's lessons. He pauses to wonder how a criminal lab's name could slip out of that grandson's mouth. Just then, a knock sounds at the door, and he shouts for someone to come in. A researcher bursts in with a briefcase, shouting to the director that the plan worked. He steps forward as the researcher shows that mixing the liquid metal with a mundare made it work. He opens the briefcase to show off the tiny liquid metal creature they made. The director loved the outcome, knowing the mandrakes could follow their mark with incredible focus. They thought about blending this with liquid metal, which sticks together really well. Thrilled, he calls for 3 times the reward and summons the elite hunters right away. He promises he will find his masterpiece, Little Nari, no matter how high the price. The scene shifts to a beach where the Birdman stands with his arms crossed, gazing out at the sea. He noted that the necklace is made of quartz and mentioned that the person who made it seems a bit strange. Near the campfire, Dune asks them to come visit his home. He praises his excellent cooking, but the Birdman finds it odd and asks if he actually lives in the demon realm. Dune says the spot is awesome, but wonders why they can't visit the human world. He wonders if the Birdman will come back, and that thought makes him pause. A flashback reveals that he holds no good memories, yet he sometimes wonders how things got this way. Dune realizes there might be a way to break the spell on his body, which leaves him utterly shocked. He talks about a manager named Kim who is an expert alchemist. We want him to look into the spells, but we need to warn him to stay realistic so he doesn't get his hopes up. The Birdman falls quiet for a moment, weighing the offer in his mind. He wonders why Dwan always helps them even when they've never done anything to help her back. Watching the 2 siblings made him wonder if something in this world matters more than just surviving at any cost. He hoped that by helping them, he might finally find the answer to that question. The scene shifts to the next day on the beach, where the Birdman shouts that something is rising from the water. Suddenly, a massive beast was yanked from the water with unbelievable strength. Ji shouts for her big brother to catch whatever she's throwing. He snatches the rope and, without knowing what it is, only wondering what it could possibly be. Then she yells for him to give his all, but the guy grumbles that it's too heavy to pull. He drags himself through the sand with all his might, leaving a deep trail behind. A huge net breaks the surface, and he is stunned to find it piled high with quartz. Gu is shocked by how much there is and asks if anyone minded it, while Dwun and Nari splash out of the water, clearly having a great time. He says the swim was great, and the girl nods, saying she had fun, too. The video shows them swimming deep in the ocean with sea fairies. Nari is startled when a fairy suddenly lands right on top of her head. They explain that their home looks like a palace, and while Nari wants to return, Gu wonders how they will carry all that quartz back to the forest. Dune says he needs to think about it, but then he hears a sound and looks up. Suddenly, a huge, colorful bird swooped into the sky and caught his eye. He knows that creature and can't help but wonder why a parrot with a curved beak is flying all by itself. Nari admires the pretty parrot, but Gia warns that it only looks nice from a distance. They're so big and fierce that no one dares to cross them. Dun smirked and agreed that a truck was just perfect. The scene shifts to show a few frightened mandrakes huddled on the ground. We see Nam kayak sitting in meditation, his body glowing with a blue aura. He focused hard and felt his mana hole had grown bigger than before. With a smile, he realizes that becoming an A-rank hunter is no longer just a dream. Then he starts wondering when his master will come back, but something strange is coming closer. The tiny metal mandra glares with a fierce, angry look that makes the young boy tremble with fear. Out of nowhere, a hand whips down and smacks the little beast right on the head. 3 men dressed in black show up, and one of them kicks the creature while warning that he's going to melt it right now. The group leader kept his eyes straight ahead until he suddenly spotted someone watching them. They spot Nam Kizio and start making fun of his bald head and strange clothes. The boy freezes in terror the moment he realizes exactly who those men are. A flashback reveals they once humiliated him, leaving him confused about why they are there again. So Kayak desperately summons the mandrakes to fight alongside him. The guys discover they are wild mandrakes and start thinking about how much they are worth. The leader creeps forward, trying to coax the tiny creatures close, but Kyo steps in to guard them because he knows their master cares for them. The giant Mundare pounds the earth and lets out a deafening roar of pure anger. Suddenly, a burst of blue energy blasts out, throwing the 3 bandits flying back with a hard thud. As dust fills the air, they look around and wonder, try to figure out if an earthquake has just hit. Jia and her brother walk up to the fallen men, completely unaware of who they are. The scene shifts to the giant parrot, panting hard from exhaustion. As they fly, Nari grumbles that the beast is too slow while Dund worries he pushed it too hard. Namki panics completely, wondering why this is happening right now. He sees two shapes and instantly knows they are disaster monsters from the coast. Then he recalls that Big Brother Dune and Nari headed that way. A terrible fear hits him as he wonders if something awful has happened to his two friends. He realizes that if this is what it takes, he might have to join the other hunters. Suddenly, the Chimera grabs him by the head and demands to know if he is Cheon Dun's cook. Kuk crashes to the ground, screaming in terror, unable to believe the monster just spoke. He steadies his nerves and stammers, wondering if they happen to know his older brother. The Birdman tells Kyoak that Dune is their friend, which leaves Kyoak completely baffled. He glances at the hunters lying on the ground and sees a perfect chance. With a twisted grin, he readies himself to hand the men over. He points and yells that they are thieves trying to steal Dun's mandrake. The scene changes, and, an hour later, the forest clearing feels perfectly peaceful. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts in the middle of the field, sending dirt flying everywhere. As Dune and Nari fly in, he jokes that there's no place like home, but the giant bird soon crashes down, groaning from exhaustion because the heavy quartz was too much for him to carry. Dune pets the creature gently and tells it to rest after all the hard work it just did. The two geese who hitched a ride ended up rolling all the way down the other bird's back. One person claims they feel sick from flying high, but then they spot something strange. He opens his eyes wide as he spots the three hunters tied to a tree right nearby. Dune sneaks closer, convinced that three top-tier hunters trying to steal the Mundare is a huge red flag. The Eagle Man gets ready to tell Dune what really happened. His partner distracts Nari with an offer to show her the house, and the girl lights up with excitement. As they walk away, he whispers that the hunters were actually hired by the Hanbit Institute to track down Nari. Dune suddenly recalls that Hanbit is the lab where Kyo found the tracker. They explain that hunters were expected to find Nari with her special tracker, but Dune was confused because they were in the coastal zone where she shouldn't have been found. The monster held up a beast made of flowing metal and said that this was the one to blame.